In this video, we're going to break down everything new for Asgard in the upcoming CP91 character pack for Marvel Crisis Protocol. Hey guys, Rich from Richmond Gaming. Hope everyone is doing fantastically well. Welcome to this, another Marvel Crisis Protocol video. And in this one, we're going to be breaking down an entire character pack, but not just a double character pack, a quadruple character pack. Yes, it's the new CP91 containing Mighty Thor, Lady Sif, Thor, Hero of Midgard, and Loki, Prince of Lies. We've got some new cards, some new character cards, some new tactics cards to take a look at, and two brand new leaderships for the Asgardians. So, without further ado, let's jump in and let's start off and take a look at the brand new Thor, Hero of Midgard, Thor Odinson. So, you're not going to be able to play this version of Thor alongside the old version of Thor, but he is an entire threat higher. But is he worth that extra threat? Let's take a look at his card then. So, as we've already mentioned, he's going to be 6 threat. He's going to be 4s across the board for his defensive tech. He's going to have 9 stamina on his healthy side. He's going to be a size 3, which is really nice. And he's going to have a medium move, and I believe he is coming on a medium base. Let me scroll up here and take a look. Yes, I do believe he is on a medium base. But let's take a look at the rest of his kit then. So he has got 1 builder, Odinson's Ire. It's going to be range 3. It's going to be 7 strength, and it's obviously going to be 0 cost because it's a builder. So it's power equal to damage dealt, but on a wild, he's going to get Lightning Arc. After this attack is resolved, choose a number of other enemy characters within range 3 of the target character equal to or less than the number of number of wild results in the attack roll. The chosen character suffers 1 damage. So we've seen a little bit of things like this before. The arc lightning from the hood, so it's going to work in a very, very similar way. So if you roll 3 wilds and you've got 3 enemy characters within range 3 of the original target, you're going to be able to do 1 damage to each of them, which is quite nice. Important to note that extra damage isn't going to generate power. It's only damage generated from the initial attack itself. And then on a wild and a hit, after this attack is resolved, this character may push the target character short. Couple of things about this. First of all, it's a May, which is always nice. You get the choice. Second of all, it's an omnidirectional push, which again is always really nice. And lastly, there is no range restriction on this, which you would expect from a 6 threat character, but even so, this is a pretty nice builder, especially that 7 stamina. That's 7 strength. That's going to be really nice and generate some power for all of the different things that Thor is going to be wanting to use. So his spender then, it's going to be physical, and it's going to be called I Would Have Words With Thee. Again, range 3. This time it's going to be strength 10, and it's going to cost 4 power. Before damage is dealt, this character places itself within 1 of the target character. So it's a nice way of being able to close a gap as well, being able to potentially get onto a point, something like that. And then after the attack is resolved, if the target character is size 4 or less, this character throws the target character away medium. Now, it's nice that the place is before the throw, because it does mean that you can get yourself into a much better position. But on the other side, because it's after the attack is resolved, if you do daze or indeed KO the character with this attack, then you're not going to be able to get that throw off, which can be a little bit annoying. I'm also surprised to see that this one is size restricted. I don't really see any reason why it needs to be. I feel like he could still throw a Sentinel or a Dormammu or something like that, especially on a big builder like this, but hey ho, it is indeed what it is. So he's got 2 active superpowers. The first one is Have At Thee. It's going to cost 3. This character throws itself medium. It does not suffer damage if it collides with another character or terrain feature. This superpower can only be used once per turn. Again, we've seen very similar things like this. Assassin's Leap and Pounce and all these sorts of things, but the big difference here is obviously Thor is going to be dishing out 4 damage rather than the sort of typical 2 that you see from this sort of things. Yes, I know Sabretooth also dishes out 4 damage from this, but so that's quite nice. And then we've got the power of Thor. Choose an interactive terrain feature of size 4 or less within range 2 and throw it long. This superpower can only be used once per turn. It's going to cost 3 power. A little bit disappointing on this. I would have really liked this to have been a terrain or an enemy character. But I gather because of the Have At Thee, that's the reason why. But even so, I still think it's absolutely fine. I like having the option, but interactive terrain features throws have a diminishing return, because unless it's a size 4 building or terrain feature that you're throwing, then you're not always getting the full benefit of that 3 power, and the likelihood of having 2 or 3 of them on the board available is extremely unlikely, whereas characters are typically always around until they're taken off the board. He's got 1 reactive. It's going to be I Say the Nay villain. Again, it's going to cost 3. After an attack targeting this character is resolved, it may use this superpower. If the attacker is within range 3 of this character, roll 7 dice. The attacker suffers 1 damage for each crit and wild in the result. This superpower can only be used once per turn. We've seen similar things to this on lots of different characters. This one's a little bit different in that it's 7 dice rather than the typical 4. But it does cost 3 power, whereas usually they cost 2. So I'm not too sure about this one. It's a huge risk reward. You'd expect to be getting at least a couple of damage off. So if it's going to be, I think it's almost in the same situation as when you do it on other characters. If you've got the power there to use, then great. But I do really think that Thor is going to be wanting power to do all of his other things during his turn. But if you've got the opportunity to be able to daze or KO your opponent, especially mid-activation, then I think that's going to work quite nice. The difference here is that it can only be used once per turn, whereas most of these other ones, you can use them multiple times. So yes, it's only 4 dice, but you could be rolling 4 dice twice. So I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced by it. And then we've got Asgardian. So during the power phase, he gains an additional power. And then, of course, he's flight and immunity shock. So overall, guys, is Thor, Hero of Midgard, worth the extra 1 power? He's obviously got some things in here that are better than the OG Thor. But there's a lot of things on here that I'm not a huge fan of. He loses the charge and he gets a have at thee, which can be better in certain situations, because not only are you getting yourself into range, you could potentially be getting yourself into range and doing some collision damage. But there's also going to be situations where it's not as good. What about if there is a piece of terrain between you and where you want to be to get to your opponent? What about if there's other characters in the way? So whilst looking at him with the numbers, it looks like, you know, at first glance he might be better. I'm not actually convinced that he is, or if he is worth the extra threat. Let's go down and take a look at the other side of his card. So he does drop from 9 stamina down to 8, which is, I believe, the original Thor is 6 up to 8. So, you know, we're getting an extra 3 stamina on him, which again is absolutely fine. But I'm just not seeing anything that's making me go, yeah, this guy is the version of Thor that is the absolute beefcake that we want him to be. And I do think overall right now, because I've just checked, and actually it's 7 stamina now on his front side, and it goes up to 8 because he did have those changes. So if we sort of look at it side by side, falls across the board. Old version of Thor is only size 2. This one is size 3. Now again, that's both good and bad. It means that there are fewer characters in the game that can throw him, and displace and other things. But it also means that when he is thrown, he's doing an extra potential point of damage. Old version of Thor was immune to stun. This one isn't. Just immune to shock, which the old version is as well. On his builder, his strike, yes, it was only 6 strength and it was range 2, but it had a throw on there. For Asgard, let him dish out the stagger special condition. Strongest Avenger was terrain feature or enemy character, and it was the same power. It was the same power cost. Even just hammer throw, costing 1, range 5, and it dishing out an auto shock could be really, really useful at times. So, and I'm going to be doing this with some of these characters. I'm going to be comparing and contrasting, and I just personally don't think that new version of Thor is better than the old version of Thor for the cost, right? I would say, you know, just looking at them as 2 characters, the new version is better, slightly, but is he a whole threat level better? And I would have to say, unfortunately, absolutely not. But we do have some tactics cards to take a look at, so it may be that my opinion changes as we go through those tactics cards. But before we get on to let's have a quick look at the tactics card that's here, because it is here. So we've got, for a limited time only, during Thor, Hero of Midgard's activation, he may spend 3 power to play this card for the rest of this round, while other allied Midgard characters are within 4 of Thor, Hero of Midgard. They have Thor's Blessing. What is Thor's Blessing? You add 1 die to your attack rolls, and then if you do damage, you dish out shock. I'm not a huge fan of this as well. Like, really not a huge fan of this. It has to be played during Thor's activation, which means you're going to be, you know, to get the most benefit out of this, you're going to be activating Thor very early on, and Thor has access to some decent, crowd control, some out of control, out of action movement for your opponent with those pushes, displacements, things like that. And I just, for 3 power, I don't think it's worth it. And it only works with new Thor. It doesn't work with the old version of Thor. So for me, this card isn't doing anything for him. It's not making him any better. So because of that, guys, this pack is off to a bad start for me. Not a huge fan of this new version of Thor. I just don't see where he is worth 6 threat. And that's the biggest problem. I really don't see where he is worth the 6th threat, especially when we're comparing him to an older 5 threat version that has had a little bit of a glow up, and does almost everything that you want Thor to do now. Okay, that's enough talking about Thor. Let's take a look at Loki, Prince of Lies. So this is going to be a 5 threat version of Loki. So obviously the old version of Loki was only a 4 threat, but he did have the ability to take some gems with him. So you could make him a 5 threat, but, and me and Quinn spoke about this a lot, you were never taking him as a 5 threat because he just wasn't worth it. However, let's have a look at this 5 threat version of Loki and see what he's bringing. Well, first of all, a significantly improved defense. So 4-4-5. So whereas the old version of Loki was 3-3-4. So already a huge upgrade there. 7 stamina on his front versus the 5 stamina that the OG Loki was. Size 2, that's remained the same. And then a long move. Whereas the old version of Loki was only a medium move. Now, it does look like he's going to be on a small base, but again, with a long move, it really doesn't matter. Let's take a look then at his one and only builder, Mischiefs and Magics. It's going to be a Mystic attack. It's going to be range 3. It's going to be 6 strength, and it's going to be power equal to damage dealt. But on a crit and a wild, after the attack is resolved, this character may advance the target character short. Then the target character gains the root special condition. I like this. It kind of similar thing to what the old version of Loki was doing with his God of Mischief, where he was taxing people to use superpowers. This is going to do a very similar thing. I would have liked it to be on a single trigger, but I think on 2 that's absolutely fine. So his spender then is going to be an area 3 attack spender that's going to be 5 strength, and it's going to cost 4 power. After each attack is resolved, if that attack dealt damage, this character advances the target character short. Only 5, 5 strength. So against certain characters, doing that 1 damage is going to be hard, I will say, but against the right team in the right setup, especially with it being Mystic, it's probably the second heaviest defensive tech there. Usually people with good Mystic are very good at Mystic, whereas physical and energy, they have a lot of other defensive tech around them as well. But I think it's fine. And then allied characters in range of this attack do not suffer damage for it. So for anyone that doesn't know, usually your allied characters, I might have said enemy then, but allied characters in range don't suffer damage. Usually with an area attack or indeed a beam attack, you would take 1 damage. But you're not going to take it from this. Interesting that his only spender is going to be this clever ploy. But I actually think unless you're in a very good situation, Mischiefs and Magics is probably where it's going to be for the vast majority of the time, but he's got a few other things that he wants to do. And the first thing that he's got is I Come Bearing Gifts. Affiliation Asgard, yes. Loki, Prince of Lies, aka Loki Laufeyson, is the second leader for the Asgard. While another allied character is attacking, defending, or dodging, during the modify dice step, it may spend power. If it does, it may reroll one of its dice, and this character gains 1 power. So, couple of things to note with this. It is while another allied character. So, Loki's leadership will not work on himself for the first part. So Loki can't use that that dice modification for himself. But what he does get is a power off the back of it, which actually may make fueling that clever ploy that much more easier, or maybe a couple of the other things that he wants to do. So first of all, we have got Go Forth, his first active or his only active ability. It's going to cost 2. Choose another allied character within 4. Place the chosen character within 2 of its current position. This superpower can only be used once per turn. This is really good. I really, really do like this. And the fact that it only costs 2 power is really, really nice as well. Really good for early doors, getting somebody up the board. He can do this round 1 because he is Asgardian. Again, it has to be another. It can't be himself. Quite an unselfish version of Loki, this, compared to what we've seen in previous iterations. So I really like this, but obviously it can only be used once per turn. And then we've got his reactive, Oh My, What a Pity. It's going to cost 1. After an attack targeting this character or an allied character within range 3, or after an attack made by this character is resolved, it may use this superpower. If the enemy character's roll contains any failure results, that character suffers 1 damage. So let's just break it down again. So after an attack targeting this character or an allied character within 3, or after an attack made by this character is resolved. So basically any situation where an attack is made within range 3, unless it is an attack made by one of your allied characters. So a lot of situations here. And this may not sound like a lot, but doing that 1 chip damage every single time your opponent is rolling dice really, really starts to wear them down. And the fact that you only need to spend the power once you've seen what the result is. I think it's really good. There's some really, really crazy synergy lists that you could start thinking of when you stack this up with other things that do something similar. So I really like that, and I think it's going to have a really big impact on the damage output of Loki over the duration of a game. I've already mentioned he's Asgardian, and then lastly, this isn't mischief. This is mayhem. When attacking or defending, this character adds failure results in the enemy character's rolls to its total successes. This is really nice. The fact that it is innate as well. So what does this mean? So Loki attacks with his 6 dice. He gets 3 successes. Your opponent gets 1 block and 2 fails. Well, I've got 3. You block it, that makes it 2. But actually, it's going to be 2 more because I'm going to get 1 for each of your failures that you've rolled. And similarly, when you're attacking and I'm defending, it's going to make Loki very, very tanky indeed. And the fact that most characters cannot modify those failure results are going to make it really, really difficult to stop Loki. I'm really, really looking forward to getting this version of Loki on the table. I don't get things sent early, but you know, I wait like everybody else. Let's have a quick look at the reverse side of his card. So nothing really changes from what I can tell. Just go down the card itself. Nothing there, nothing there, nothing there, nothing there. The only thing that's going to change is that he is going to go from having that 7 stamina down to that 6. But yeah, this is the type of character that I can absolutely get on board with. I've always been a reasonable fan of the old version of Loki, but this new version, Prince of Lies, I really, really do like. And I can see him becoming... this version of Loki paired with the old version of Loki, I think is... Sorry, the old version of Thor, I think could work very, very well indeed. Bringing some dice modification to Asgard in the form of a leadership, rather than it being just Heimdall who can do it. And let's not forget that these will stack with what Heimdall can offer as well, is going to make their damage output so consistent. And you add in there the likes of Bill. Hela's even starting to see some play now as well. I think Asgard are going to be in a very, very strong position indeed. Now, that is the end of the article, guys, but that is not the end of our video, because we have seen they have been published elsewhere. I'm sure you guys have probably seen them, but we do have cards for Lady Sif, aka Sif. She's going to be a 4/3/3. She's going to have 6 stamina on her front, size 2, medium move, small base, and is going to be a 4 threat. So all these people thinking that Sif was going to be a 2, I told you were crazy. No Asgardian is going to be a 2 cost, purely because of that extra power that they get per turn. So what has she got then? Well, she is a warrior born. Range 2, strength 5, 0 cost. Power equal to damage dealt. It's going to be a push away. Is it a push away? No, it is just an omnidirectional size 3 push on a wild after the attack is resolved. And then on a crit wild, after the attack is resolved, this character may advance short toward the target character. So they both happen after the attack, which means you can choose the order. I think that builder for a 4 cost is a little bit lacking. Now, doesn't mean she's bad. We'll get to the rest of the card, but I think that for me is a little bit lacking for a 4 threat character. And what we're going to do with Lady Sif is we are going to sort of compare her to Valkyrie, because I feel like she's kind of competing against Valkyrie in that spot. So Valkyrie has her strike, which is exactly the same without the blurb on the bottom. So range 2, strength 5, power equal to damage dealt. But she does have ways that she can make it better. But let's see what Lady Sif has. So her spender then, warrior forged, range 3, strength 7. It's going to cost 3. On a crit and a hit, mighty bash. After this attack is resolved, if a target character is size 3 or less, this character throws the target character medium, then this character advances short. Lots of movement with Lady Sif, and I'm not sure, I'm not really sure, do I associate Lady Sif with being really swift? Maybe she is more of a Zemo. We then got a charge, standard charge. Nice to see that it is just a standard charge. If you do have the power, you can also then do a warrior forged with that charge. So it's always nice to have the option. Master Swordsman, when this character is targeted by a melee attack or targets a character with a melee attack, it may use this superpower. If the enemy character is within 2, this character may reroll any number of its attack or defense dice. That's just going to increase her survivability and increase her damage output quite a bit, especially when you couple that with the Loki leadership, for example. But it's going to help making fishing for those wilds and those crits and those hits that much easier, because you're going to have a couple of stabs potentially at it. Obviously Asgardian, so she's going to get an extra power per turn. And I've just realised that does mean that she's going to be another character who can get a charge off round 1. We've just seen Loki being able to bump somebody up the board range 2. Maybe Lady Sif is a good target for that, and getting her up the board, getting that charge off round 1, and then doing some serious damage. And then lastly, she is battle tested, meaning that when she would suffer damage from an enemy effect, reduce the amount of damage suffered by 1 to a minimum of 1. I think solid as a 4 threat. Isn't going to do a huge amount of damage, but quite a self-sufficient character, which when you're getting into 4 threats, you really do want that. You want characters that are self-sufficient. She can generate her own power. She's got access to her own rerolls. That battle tested really will come in and is extremely useful throughout the duration of a game, especially with that Master Swordsman allowing her to reroll dice. So yeah, I think look, pretty solid. Asgard didn't really have this type of character. She is a little bit more of a tank. Yes, she's only got that 6 stamina pool, but even so, she is a little bit more of a tank. She does have a lot of displacement. She's going to be very good on, taking a side objective, 1v1 versus somebody else. I think she could end up being really, really good. Let's take a look at the flip side of her card. I don't think anything changes. 4-3-3 is the same. Master Swordsman charged, Warrior Born, Warrior Forged, and 6 stamina. So doesn't drop a stamina. So a lot of the 4 threats will be 6 on the front and 5 on the back. So the fact that she's 6/6 with that damage reduction is really nice. So overall, guys, I think Lady Sif's going to see some play on the table. I think she is a much needed 4 threat option for Asgard. And I actually think she could do some really, really good work for them. But again, guys, that is not it, because we do have one more character to go through. It is the Mighty Thor. So this is the Jane Foster version of Thor. This is going to be another 5 threat character. So as you'd expect with Asgard, they're big threat. But she's up against some stiff competition in the form of Angela and the OG Thor, who I still think is a very, very good character indeed. But she's going to be 4s across the board. She's going to have 8 stamina. She's going to be 5 threat, as we've already mentioned. Size 2. She's going to be on a small base. And she's going to have a medium move. For her builder, we have got Hammer Strike. After this attack is resolved, power equal to damage dealt, range 3, strength 6, and a throw on the back end of it. Now, this is really nice. This is one thing that she does have against the original version of Thor. Because Thor, whilst he's 6 strength, he has the same throw away. On the wild, it's only at range 2, whereas this is range 3. So little bit of something extra there. And she does have an extra hit point as well on the front. Lightning Blast. It's going to be energy, range 4, strength 8, and it's going to cost 4 power. On a wild, Electric Shock. Before damage is dealt, all other characters within range 2 of the target character suffer 2 damage. After this attack is resolved, the target character gains the shock special condition. So the fact that the shock is guaranteed is really nice. The electric shock is going to damage your own characters, and it is classed as allied damage. So they're not going to gain any power for that. And a lot of these defensive capabilities that reduce damage are not going to be able to stop that. Bill can. Bill's going to be able to stop that. But so overall, it's a bit of a risk reward. You're going to have to really think about who you want to target with this, and can your other opponents in there, can your other characters that are in and around take the 2 damage? Because 2 damage is a lot. 2 damage as chip is huge. But I don't mind this. I don't mind this at all. And then we've got her leadership. So yes, the Mighty Thor is going to be the 3rd leader. Third leader for Asgard. Renegade Thor of Asgardia. Once per turn, when an allied character attacks an enemy character within range 2 of itself, the allied character may re-roll one of its attack dice. And then additionally, once per turn, when an enemy character targets an allied character with an attack, if the enemy character is not within 2 of it, the allied character may re-roll one of its defense dice. So a lot less consistent than Loki's, but it doesn't cost the power. However, overall, if I'm looking at these two leaderships side by side, the mighty Thor, I need to differentiate now between our Thors, the mighty Thor and Loki Prince of Lies. I think Loki Prince of Lies as a leader, just from a leadership standpoint, just edges it out for me of the two here. So for Midgard, it's going to cost 3. It's going to be an action, and it's going to be this character makes a move action followed by an attack action. When making this attack, this character may re-roll up to 2 of its dice. Only use once per turn. This is amazing. This is so good. Being able to choose which attack you want to make, but more importantly, getting those re-rolls in. And the fact, guys, that she is a medium move, that hammer strike is range 3, and we've already spoke about how Loki can get characters up the board. This could be really, really good indeed. I really, really do like this. Inner Strength, choose an interactive terrain feature of size 4 or less within range 2 and throw it medium. All these Asgardians have the ability to throw stuff around. It's going to cost 3. Again, the older Asgardians, the Thors and the Bills, they had these terrain feature or enemy character. And once again, she is only terrain feature. And yes, she can throw size 4 off the back of a hammer strike, but being able to guarantee that throw is often very, very nice to have. But either way, it's nice to have it. I'd rather have it than not have it, but I would have preferred if that was an enemy character as well. Only 1 reactive power is she, if she be worthy. It's going to cost 2. When this character is defending against a physical or energy attack during the modified dice step, it may use this superpower. This character may re-roll any number of its defense dice. So we've just seen this on, Sif with Master Swordsman, but that had to be within range 2. This is not within range 2. This is from any range, and it's not just physical, it's energy as well. So I do really, really like that. I think that's really, really nice. Blessed by the All-Mother, because of course she's not Asgardian. She's from Midgard, also known as Earth. So she does gain 1 additional power. And then she has flight and immunity to shock. So again, not immune to stun. And there's a lot to be said for that. There's a lot to be said for these big characters not being immune to stun. Old Thor is. Now, the nice thing is, you can run Old Thor and the Mighty Thor side by side, because whilst they both have Thor in their name, one is Jane Foster and one is Thor Odinson. It's a bit like being able to run multiple versions of Spider-Man, right? So you can run Spider-Man Peter Parker and Spider-Man Miles Morales together. You can't run Amazing Spider-Man Peter Parker and Spider-Man Peter Parker because they're both Peter Parker. There's only one of them. But yeah, so because they're 2 different characters, you can run them both. Let's check her injured side out. And she does drop. So she is the reverse. Actually, she's not the reverse of Thor. She drops by 2. So she does lose 2 stamina. I'm just looking now and looking down, and it doesn't look like anything else changes. But 6 stamina on a 5 threat on their injured side is a little rough. But overall, what is that? 8. So overall, it is 14 stamina. and having more stamina on the front or on the healthy side of a character's card is generally better, because it's keeping them alive for longer, and it's meaning that they can contest fully for longer as well. So I don't mind her being front loaded, but once she flips, she's going to be susceptible and potentially go down quite quickly. But let me know, guys, what do you think of these 4 new characters? They're definitely bringing some different flavors to Asgard, 2 brand new leaderships, which will make a lot of those Asgard players very, very happy. I actually think the weakest character in the box is probably the 6th threat version of Thor. I really don't think he, at least at first glance and reading through and, without playing any games, I really don't think he is worth that 6th threat. But that's not all, guys. We've got some more tactics cards to show you. So let's start off with Giant's Blood. This is going to be an unaffiliated reactive card. When an enemy character ends a movement within range 2 of an allied Loki Laufeyson may spend 2 power to play this card. Enemy characters within range 2 of Loki Laufeyson gain the slow and root special conditions. Then Loki drops all objective tokens he is holding and is placed within 5 of his current position. That's pretty darn good. That is pretty darn good indeed. And it's when they end a movement, so many things are movement, right? It's not a movement action, it's not an advance or anything like that. So it's going to include advances, throws, placements. It's going to be really, I think this is going to be really, really good, especially with all the throws that Asgard have got access to. You're potentially going to be able to trigger this yourself and get Loki further up or further away on the board, where you want him to be, basically. But do remember, he is going to drop all of those objective tokens. Is this card going to be stapled to Loki? I don't know if it's necessarily going to be stapled, but I could definitely see it making your 10 and something that you take depending on what objectives you are playing. Also worth noting that it is Loki Laufeyson. It's not Loki Prince of Lies. So this will work on the original version of Loki as well. Also, super cool artwork. I do really like that. Looks like that could be Surtur that he's coming up against there. Okay, guys. Next up, another card for Loki, but this is going to be just for the Loki Prince of Lies. It's going to be Trickster's Boon. It's going to be an Asgard-only card. It's going to be active, and it's during an allied non-Asgard character's activation. Loki may spend 4 power to play this card. Choose an allied non-Asgard character and an enemy character. The chosen allied character gains 5 power. This activation phase, if the chosen allied character dazes or KOs the chosen enemy character, gain 1 VP after the effect is resolved. If it did not, during the cleanup phase, the player controlling the chosen enemy character gains 1 VP. The chosen allied character loses all of its power, and Loki Prince of Lies gains 1 power for each power lost this way. I absolutely love these types of card. I really, really like these. Really, really like these. There are some prime contenders for this. And Loki, Prince of Lies, especially if you're using his leadership, is going to be generating so much power from that leadership being used. But this could be really easy to just get an extra VP. Because there are some characters out there that if you activate with them and give them 5 power, they're almost guaranteed to take whoever it is off the board. And the fact that you can choose, I just want to read it again. You can choose any enemy character. It could be Wong, although I don't know how, but Wong always seems to roll really well for me. But, you know, it could be anyone that is easy to take down. Somebody who you may have already been going for. A character that your opponent has already activated. So it doesn't matter if you daze or KO them, you're not going to mess around with your priority. I really like this. And if you're playing Loki Prince of Lies, I can see this card being played a lot of the time. Definitely making your 10. But it's so non-situational. It's going to work in every setup pretty much. You know, the only thing here is you need to bring a non-Asgardian character with you. Well, there's some pretty good non-Asgardian characters that can dish out a lot of damage. And I think this could be really good. Again, especially giving them 5 power. This could be really, really good. And a way of being able to have a huge impact on the game, scoring an extra VP. Now, yes, your opponent could get very lucky. You know, it has to be the chosen allied character that dazes or KOs the chosen enemy character. You know, your opponent can do things to try and mitigate that, but the fact that you do it all within the same, you know, everything's happening within the same activation, you've got a lot of control over this. So really, really like this card, and I can really see it being played. Next up then, we've got For a Limited Time Only. We've already read that one, but we do get to take a look at the other artwork. We're seeing Ghost Spider and Kamala Khan on there, which is a little bit random. You sort of couldn't see it on the other one, but hey, there we go. It is what it is. Heart of the Worthy. Asgard reactive. At the end of the activation phase, an allied, the Mighty Thor, may spend 2 power to play this card. The Mighty Thor removes her activated token, and then she immediately activates. During the next cleanup phase, the Mighty Thor is KO'd. Really interesting. Really, really interesting. This is sort of akin to the Doom Prophecy play, where it's kind of your last ditch attempt. Now, there are cards that can mitigate this, and I don't know if they are worth it. But getting 2 activations with her could be quite good. But I'm not sure. I'm really not sure with this one. You know, it's a huge risk reward. It could mean that you win the game. And if you win the game, well, hey, it doesn't matter if she's KO'd, right? It really doesn't matter. But there's a couple of downsides to this or there's other downsides to this that are not written on the card, and that is priority. If you don't win the game, she is not only KO'd during the next cleanup phase, but you are going to give priority away to your opponent, which can be huge, especially if you're at a time in the game where you are willing to play this, right? Because typically, if you're willing to play this card, it's going to be towards the latter stages of the game, because you know you're not going to KO a character on turn 1 or turn 2. So you're going to be at the latter stages, and in the latter stages, losing priority can have a huge impact. So it's really interesting, really interesting. I think we need to have a little think here about, you know, characters that can help with this. Is there a window of opportunity in the cleanup phase to use something like last minute save? I'm not sure if there is. I'd need to work it through in my head. I've got a sneaky feeling there isn't. So yeah, situational could be really good, but also, as well as potentially winning you the game, could also potentially lose you the game as well. But really like the card. Think it's really thematic, and yeah, I do think it's really on point. And then lastly, we've had Odin's blessing, we've had Thor's blessing, and now it's time for Freya's blessing. Asgard card, reactive. During the power phase, any allied Asgard character may spend 3 power to play this card. This character may reroll any number of his defense dice for this round. Yeah, it's okay. Like it's really okay. Not as impactful as like an Odin's blessing. But still, it's okay. I don't think, I think again of the, in terms of tactics cards, this is probably one of my least favourite, along with For a Limited Time Only. I think my favourite is absolutely Trickster's Boom, and then probably Heart of the Worthy. I'm sure there's going to be some ways that you can win games with this. So yeah, there we go, guys. That is everything that is coming in the new Thor character pack, or the Asgardian character pack. But what do you guys think? Are you excited about getting your hands on this box? I know I am. The models, I think, for the most part are really cool. I think Thor looks a little derpy, but hey ho, it is what it is. But yeah, I'm really excited about getting my hands on this box. Like I say, I don't get sent things early. I don't know what I did. Yeah, I think this could be a real shake-up for the current meta. And they're bringing some characters that are going to do some serious work on the table, and it's a serious boost to the Asgardian roster, and I think one that has been well overdue. You know, we did get Scourge and Heimdall a little while back, but they weren't really that impactful. This box is impactful, bringing brand new leaders, bringing brand new 4, 5 and 6 threat characters. As I mentioned before, overall, I think the weakest in this box is Thor. And I know a lot of you didn't want to hear that, and a lot of you maybe disagree with me, and a lot of you maybe are a bit annoyed by that. I know I probably am. I really wanted a very good version of Thor. But I think looking through his card, comparing and contrasting, and then looking at what that extra 1 threat can mean, I just don't think he's worth it. But as always, guys, let me know down in the comment section below, what do you think? Are you going to be picking this box up? If you are going to be picking this box up, why not check out our sponsor, Leodis Games? You'll find a link down in the description below, where you can get £5 off your first order. So yeah, go and check them out. Guys, I want to give a big shout out to all of our Patreons. Thank you so much for your support. You do make the running of the channel that much easier. And if you do want to support us on Patreon, you can do so from as little as £1 a month, or indeed join us as a YouTube member as well. But you don't need to do either of those things to support us. Just simply commenting, liking, subscribing and sharing this content really does go a long way. So thank you to everyone for the support over the first half of this year, as we are now well and truly into the second half. Guys, go check out the Discord. You'll find a link down in the description below. And lastly, you've only got a couple of days left to register for our first GT sponsored by Atomic Mass Games that's going to be happening in Sheffield. Again, you'll find a link down in the description below, so go and check that out. And as always, guys, it leaves me with just enough time to say stay well, keep safe, and until next time, bye for now.